City is set to begin the process of evicting migrant families from city-run shelters.
Starting tomorrow, families exceeding the 60-day stay will be told to leave and reapply for housing. Today, a rally took place in Lower Manhattan where demonstrators called for an end to the shelter limits that are impacting thousands of migrant families. Morgan McKay has more on the eviction process and reaction from City Hall.
You'll come into the arrival center, store your luggage, you receive your next assignments.
Around 4,400 migrant families with children have now received notices that their 60-day shelter stay limits are up and will be evicted out of shelters over the next several weeks on a rolling basis. If they do not have somewhere to go next, they will have to reapply for housing at the Roosevelt Hotel. City Hall says that starting on Tuesday, right now there are about 40 families in total who are unable to find their own housing and will have to reapply for a new hotel room. Meanwhile, buses from Texas have continued to drop off migrants at New Jersey train stations, buying them train tickets to New York City in order to avoid any fines or lawsuits as a result of Mayor Eric Adams' executive order banning unannounced buses. Adams also announced a lawsuit against 17 bus companies last week in order to recoup money for having to care and shelter these migrants. Now, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy issued a letter to these bus companies also outlining several rules similar to Adams, and although it does not come with any penalties, the Adams administration praised this move.
Hello family, welcome back to another episode of Journey to Harmony. I'm your host Richard Harmon. Today I want to come to you and talk to you about the current crisis going on in New York City. There's a current eviction that's going on. So the policy has been that migrants have been able to stay in homeless shelters, they've been able to stay in hotels and things of that nature, but the cost of these expenses are beginning to get outrageous for the city of New York. So they're now putting in a implementation that lasts for 60 days of where migrants can come in. They can stay in shelter for a period of time and then they have to be removed. There's a group of people who are protesting, saying end evictions, but these people generally don't understand finances. They don't understand the fact that there's hotel upkeep, there's water and light and electricity, all of these bills that are required to be compensated for as you're taking care of these migrant individuals. What's happening right now is the Mayor Eric Adams, who has been an advocate previously for migrants, is now realizing the reality that the border needs to be closed. He's recently spoken and stated that it is needed for the border to be closed and that there's a need for a national response to this issue. The mayor of Chicago as well, Brandon Johnson, has stated that this is not a local issue but a national issue and it's needed for them to speak up on it. And we're seeing more and more just about how this is relaying. Right now, as it's getting colder throughout the country, many of these migrants are going to places like Chicago, Denver, New York City, places that are known to be colder in the wintertime. And what's happened just as recently, there was a few brawls that broke out in some of the migrant shelters or some of the areas as people are fighting to get into safe spaces, into where it is warm and it is clothed. And some people are fighting over these particular issues. What I'm gonna do right now is go ahead and play a little video. We'll watch a little bit of this, come back and talk about it. The first time joining, please hit that like button. Consider subscribing to the channel, and here we go.
The border need to close to stop people from coming.
Well, I've been, very clear on the points based on my observations from going to El Paso to my observation of going down to the Darien Gap. What needs to be done is we need a resolution at the border, and our national leaders must come up with that resolution. And while they're doing so, you cannot displace the financial responsibility onto the cities. And that includes Brownsville, El Paso, Denver, New York, Chicago, Boston. We have a responsibility to make sure that we can not only take care of long-term residents of our cities, but also treat those who arrive here in a humane way. This is bad for the migrants and asylum seekers, and it's bad for the city. And so how they resolve that is coming up with real immigration reform and allocating in the budget the financial needs that these cities need and having a decompression strategy to address this issue. Leaders have commended us. People have toured our sites and locations. They have commended the level of humanitarian actions we showed. We put in place the 30-day plan for single adults, so now we're doing it for the children and families, the 60-day for children and families. And as Dr. Long stated, close to 70% of the people that came in, we've stabilized. We are able to accomplish that without children and families sleeping on the street. And so the track record of the success of taking this national humanitarian crisis and not having people sleep on the streets and not having children and families on the street, but doing it in a way that we are stabilizing almost 70%, is clearly the track record shows that we have taken a crisis and thoughtfully thought through it. And just when you look at the track record, you have to say to yourself, we have created a model that the national government should be following. We lived up to what is expected of New Yorkers, being humane and stabilizing children and families. And again, if we could just close the front door, we could get through this, but we can't.
All right, so you heard that there. So again, he's stating that's a real abrupt change from his previous stance. Governor Adams, Mayor Adams, Governor Hochul, they were all saying how much they were desiring to have the migrants come to their city, and now things are being changed. They're also realizing that the need to shut down the border is becoming a reality. While Joe Biden can sit in the White House and he can he can pontificate about this whole idea, mayors who are on the ground realize the reality of the situation. They are elected every 2 to 4 years. They look up and they are in a crisis. Mayor Adams' approval rating is in the toilet. He knows for a fact that he needs to stop the bleeding as quickly as possible, and he sees that there's really no end in sight. He stated in a previous interview that the governor of Texas, Governor Greg Abbott, has determined that he will send an additional 25,000 people to the New York City area. So as they're saying, about 10 to 12 buses, maybe even sometimes 15, are arriving every single day. 2,500 to 3,000 people on average. So if you look up, and between now and the election time, that could be another 100,000 people or so that are arriving on a consistent basis, and they're already saying that they're having a capacity issue. The policy that has been put in place recently by Mayor Adams, kind of blocking the buses from arriving in New York City outside of certain time periods, has caused an overflow in New Jersey, as a result of us being so close to New York City. They're receiving people now on a consistent basis, and they're receiving train tickets and kind of just taking a train up to New York City. New York City has some pretty singular policies in terms of sheltering people who are in need, and that's why people continue to go there. And the New Jersey New Jersey mayor has now decided that they're going to do something very similar in terms of putting in policies stating that there's only a certain time frame when people can be dropped off. What does this mean? That means that other places that are surrounding New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, are getting ready to get their share of the migrants now. So what it looks like is like Governor Abbott is sending people as far as New York City, and then as each city and state puts in rules, as he's drawing back the line further and further and further. So you will have, like you said, like Delaware, where Joe Biden is home of. You'll have D.C., you'll have Virginia, you'll have all of these places, and likely what's happening as well is that people are being dropped off at other places along the road and just kind of not getting back on the bus, which is smart for them. Again, if you're dropped off in Kentucky where no one really notices, you get off on a bus and you kind of figure it out. Many people who have cell phones, they're watching and they're seeing how rough things are in places like New York, and it doesn't make sense for you to go there and to force yourself into a bad situation. These other places around the country that have more space, it is much easier for them to be able to take in people, for people to go somewhere and to hide, somewhere in the outskirts of the major cities, and just be fine and just work like that. We're going to see a lot of different issues right now, as I stated earlier. As the places get cold, as these cities are becoming more and more cramped for space, we're going to see crime rise. There's been talks about brothels that have opened up. There are talks about robbings and things of that nature that are happening, and those are things that are likely to continue as the spaces become more limited, as people become more desperate. Food shelves are likely going to be overrun as more and more people are seeking some assistance. The country is facing a $34 trillion deficit, $34 trillion debt overall for the nation. There's just a lot of things that are happening right now. So this is going to be a very interesting year. 2024 is definitely going to be a year to remember. Stay close and stay involved, and we will keep you updated as best as possible. What are your thoughts on the situation? Do you believe the border should be closed, or what are your thoughts in terms of Mayor Adams and some of the rules that he has implemented? Please comment below, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for joining, and have a good day.